And good afternoon to those of you on the Canada-US West Coast. Good evening to those of you on the US Canada East Coast. And a good morning to those in Australia, New Zealand, and in the Pacific region. And to those watching elsewhere in the world or watching on recording on LinkedIn and YouTube. Hello, my name is Michael Haynes, Business Growth Specialist for small, medium B2B accounting, technology, and law firms. And welcome to another edition of Ask Michael Anything. For those of you that are watching live right now, please do say hello and let me know where you're dialing in from. Always great to have you. So for those of you that are new to Ask Michael Anything, so Ask Michael Anything is my live stream show, interactive office hours, for lack of a better term, aimed at small, medium B2B professional service firms, where they can come in and ask any questions they have around pertaining to building and growing their firms. You can ask your questions. I will also, each episode, which I generally do twice a month, will share 3 strategies around some specific theme pertaining to business growth. In today's edition, I'm going to be talking about 3 strategies to be taking your firm global. So whether you're running some form of technology firm, be it a MSP, technology firm, SaaS company, an accounting firm, consulting firm, cybersecurity, law firm, what are some of the strategies you should be considering when taking your firm forward? First of all, why should we be looking to do so? Is it presents great opportunities for you right now. Many of our clients in our world of advisory services, technology service, etc., are very much open to and working with providers from different markets. Often many of those present many untapped opportunities. And by virtue of what we've gone through over the past 4 or 5 years, people have been accustomed to and have seen the opportunities and the value of working with providers that may not be in their local jurisdiction or even their local countries. But if they have the depth of the expertise and quality of delivery, then they are able to service them. So there are potential, given what we do in professional services, being very knowledge-based, very service-based, that the opportunities for us to be looking at other markets, other opportunities definitely present themselves. Before I go on any further, so as I'm going through, if you have any questions, please send them through on the chat. I am using StreamYard. Sometimes the questions come through directly, sometimes they don't. Hopefully they do, and I will answer them for you. If I don't, I will be reposting this recording, the link to the recording. And please, in the comments, please put in any questions that you may have that I have not answered. So again, today's Ask Michael Anything is about 3 tips around global expansion. Given the environment that we're in, there's a lot of uncertainty, volatility. This also can represent opportunities for us to be looking outside our own local, national regions and markets, to go to other borders, other countries, to regions, to expand our businesses. Now, there are 3 strategies that I'm going to be talking about today that are quite important that you undertake and consider as part of endeavoring to entering new markets, be it new geographic markets. Now, these are not the only 3. This is not all-encompassing, but these are 3 considerations, 3 actions, considerations you want to be taking as part of your overall growth strategies, go-to-market strategy endeavors. The first one is strategic market identification. So now, before you start to do anything with your firm in terms about going global, going international, you first really want to be meeting with your co-founders, members of your leadership team, and really making sure you're clear on what are the goals and objectives you have for your firm, be it your technology company, your accounting/advisory firm, legal firm. What are the goals and objectives, and think about how, if and how, expanding internationally, going into new global markets can align with that. So you definitely want to have that kind of internal discussion and assessment and validation, and make sure you're aligned in that regard. That being said, that being the case that you are thinking to pursue of going internationally, the first thing your firm needs to undertake is strategic market identification. And with that, you need to do what I call two forms of listening, i.e., getting that in depth understanding on two levels. First, there is what those of you that have seen my content before, listened in on previous live, is listening to the market. So it's about getting that in-depth understanding around those industries, those geographic markets that you're considering entering, and who are, some of the key competitors, players within those markets. So what I'm talking about when I say listen to the market, yes, that is fundamentally about doing that in-depth industry, market research and analysis. What are some of the kinds of things you want to be looking at in terms of from an international level when you're contemplating going overseas? These are things like you want to have an understanding of, what are the trends? What are some of the market developments, market performance? What is the size of the market? Profitability, is it growing, is it shrinking? And you want to be thinking it at that regional level. So if you're looking to go in, let's say, into parts of Europe or the Middle East, you want to be looking within that region, and also the performance, what's going on within the industry verticals that you're looking to operate within them. So again, growth rates, profitability, market size, what are some of the legal, regulatory, tax requirements? What are some of the cultural and business norms of operating in those markets? Even if you're going, for example, say from English-speaking market to other English-speaking market, there can be nuances in terms of business practices, how meetings are conducted, just general ways of doing business. You also want to make sure you have an understanding of your competitors from a buyer perspective. And by that, I mean you want to have an understanding as to what are some of the different alternatives that your potential buyers or prospects are considering as other alternatives with respect to the kind of products and service offerings that your firm delivers. So who else are they considering when they're looking for managed services, IT strategy services, digital transformation, cybersecurity services, strategic and financial advice, legal advice? Who are the other players, alternatives that they're considering? You want to have an understanding of those providers, what they're doing, what their key strategies are as well. Another element you want to be looking at in terms of listening to the market when you're doing that market understanding is looking for government initiatives. Are there key initiatives, imperatives within the markets that you're going into? Because that can represent opportunities for your business. To use technology as an example, if, for example, you're considering potentially going into the Gulf region, so let's say potentially the likes of Bahrain, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates, for example, has a few initiatives such as UAE, I believe it's called Vision 2031, where there are strategic imperatives around cybersecurity, digital transformation. So you want to have an understanding, are there potentially within the markets you're going into, are there some key government initiatives which may unlock and represent some untapped, underserved opportunities? Now you may be asking, so how do you go about identifying and doing this listening to the market? Well, there are some practical sources that you can be using, and you definitely want to be considering as part of undertaking that industry market analysis. Your industry and your professional associations, as you often may have heard me say before, is a great starting point. So your local industry and professional associations, because they are often the repository where they have the reports, the white papers, the newsletters, the webinars, they're doing the events, and this can be the formal research studies. These can be great sources where you can get actually a lot of that market intelligence that you need to understand trends, development, market requirements, what are the upcoming and current government initiatives you may be able to take advantage of. You also want to be thinking about, in addition to your industry and professional associations, other organizations like your International Chamber of Commerce. So for other geographies. So for example, here in Sydney, we have the likes of the German Chamber of Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce. Those organizations also are great repositories and sources of information, insights, reports, webinars. They're conducting events, opportunities for you to meet people in those markets. So to gain the insights and information that you need to help make those assessments and gain that understanding of the markets you're potentially serving. So industry professional associations, those international business group, chamber of commerce are great sources. You also want to be thinking about your formal secondary market research studies. So the likes of your Gartners, IDCs, IBIS World, they produce market research reports that will cover by industries, by region, and those are great sources that can help you gain understanding of some of the key elements with respect to market entry requirements, trends, growth rates, profitability, market attractiveness, barriers of entry, ease of entry. World Bank has some reports, the Doing Business Index report. OECD has some reports, country reports as well. So these are some of the kinds of sources that you want to be leveraging and utilizing as part of your listening to the market. Definitely looking at your competitor websites and looking and taking a strategic look to understand their positioning. What are they offering? Who are they working and aligning with? Their key value propositions. That's also another key source you want to be using as well. Now you may be saying, I'm a small, medium business, Michael. We're bombarded with doing work, working in the business. Where do I have time to be working on the business like this? But we do want to go global. Well, some options for you want to consider. You may want to consider leveraging the likes of a virtual assistant to help you collate and do some of that analysis. And build that market understanding so that you can then workshop with your leadership and team members to make that assessment about whether or not you're going to pursue those international opportunities. So virtual assistants are one. Universities and getting insurance through universities through their MBA programs, Bachelor of Business Commerce program. You can get great resources of people that are students that are quite skilled in doing this kind of market analysis at low to no cost. So virtual assistants, university interns from your business programs or your relevant technology, legal programs. And of course, there's also the likes of your AI, which you can use as well. I do not recommend you relying on AI tools such as your Perplexities, your Google AIs, but certainly that can be one source to help with your curation and collation of insights. So strategic market identification, step one of that is listening to the market. Second component of strategic market identification is listening at that buyer level. Again, those of you that have listened to and been access to my content before will know that we're B2B. It is not enough to understand from a client perspective. So if you're looking to get into an organization such as the Royal Bank or Bendigo Bank here in Australia, it's not enough to understand the organization. We need to understand the buyers. And there are three fundamental questions, irrespective of your industry vertical, of what you want to understand from a buyer perspective. Who makes the decisions? What are their true priorities, objectives, and how do they buy? And it is that third element of how they buy. It is quite critical that you get the clarity and depth of understanding. Because in our world of professional services, providing advisory services, technology services, legal services, the way in which those big dollar, complex advisory solutions, the way in which our buyers buy has fundamentally changed. The key question has gone from how to very much who. So as part of understanding how they buy, in a context of going international, you really want to make sure you have an understanding of the ecosystems in those geographic regions and those geographic markets that you're going into. So who are the key other providers, strategic partners, the associations, the groups, the key events, the experts, where in which your potential international clients and prospects are collaborating with, going to, who deem as their trusted advisors, their trusted sources for what I call AIR, advice, insights, and recommendations. Very much important that you gain an understanding of that. So again, three key questions in terms of understanding at that buyer level. Who buys, what are their priorities, and how they buy. So now how do you get insights on this? Again, the likes of your international business groups, your international type chamber of commerce, your trade, federal government trade organization can be good sources as well. But as a colleague of mine, David Solomon in Montreal would say, you need to also be prepared to get away from your laptops, out of your offices, and be in market in person. So going to in-person conferences and events in the markets that you're looking to serve is something that you definitely want to be looking to do. Also, again, your local markets, so within those markets that you're going into, understanding and tapping into some of their groups and associations, their communities will often be a great source of information. Where you can do interviews, discussions with some of your in-market professionals. So talking to your peers and colleagues who are consultants, IT specialists, advisory specialists in those markets that you're serving, and having meetings, discussions with them, you will get great insights from them. If you can go even one step further and be speaking to some of their clients, so that you're getting direct firsthand feedback as to prospective clients' priorities, objectives, buying behaviors, buying requirements, key challenges, that will be highly effective as well. As part of doing your listening to the getting your understanding around the buyers, you want to be making sure that you, in terms of understanding, those three critical questions of who buys, what are their priorities, and how they buy. As part of how they buy, beware of differences and nuances that can be occurring within the respective regions and specific countries that you're going into, because there can be differences. So taking a technology context in terms of B2B buying in the IT context, Nordic countries, for example, there's a tendency for them to be really heavily reliant on references and peer validations. Whereas in going to the markets such as Germany, formal processes around the whole buyer service provider selection tend to occur. So you want to be making sure, as part of your research, what you might do through some of those formal research sources, as well as your meetings and discussions, preferably in person, in market, that you're gaining an understanding of some of those buying nuances. So again, talk about strategic market identification in terms of one of your key imperatives you want to be doing when contemplating going to market. There's two kinds of listening you want to be doing. So listening to the market, as well as listening to the buyers. And again, there is an array of sources that you can be using, starting off with some of those industry and professional associations, both locally and within the markets that you're serving, as being some good starting points. So that's the first. Strategic market identification is number one. The second strategy you want to be looking at is your market entry options. So you want to be thinking about what are some of those market entry options that you may have to be going into new markets. Are you going to be undertaking the likes of partnerships, joint ventures, alliances, and with whom are you going to be doing these with? You might be looking to engage in endeavors such as collaborating with associations, groups, online communities, CEO advisory groups, and those industry experts, other consulting firms. So these are just some of the other potential people, players you may want to be looking to collaborate with. Now, in terms of how you might want to be collaborating as part of your market entry option, this could be around doing the likes of collaborating around content, doing events. It could be an initial pilot offering, whereas you, a technology company, you might partner with another service provider and have a pilot offering for, let's say, 3 to 6 months. So there are a couple options that can be used with regards to your market entry options. Again, thinking about different kinds of options, again, such as associations, groups, communities, experts, other firms, and there's varying levels. You may want to start off, content, events, pilot offerings being the three. So we have strategic market identification, looking at your various market entry options and looking at different organizations, different players, and again, you will gain guidance as to which ones might be best fit based on doing some of that market intelligence and understanding the market, the buyers, the ecosystem, and how your buyers are buying and where and with whom they are aligning and going to for trusted advice, insight, that will guide and help determine which some of those options I've just mentioned are most relevant for you. The third element you want to be thinking about, in addition to strategic market identification, looking at your market options, is cultural and regional tailoring. Now, I'm not just talking about from a language perspective, potentially if you're going into a non-speaking English country, or also from a cultural perspective as well. So this can be around understanding definitely the cultural norms in terms of how they communicate, how they do business. You may need to tailor your messaging, your language, but also from a strategic go-to-market standpoint. There could be preferred mechanisms, channels, approaches that are preferred and are more utilized within those particular industries, within those particular markets. So you want to be doing your research to be understanding that. To give an example, so for instance, if you were looking to go into the likes of United Arab Emirates, part of your go-to-market strategy is going to be heavily around, you want to be doing strong investigation around leveraging local partnerships, because in the IT space, in that region, that is a very much a key way, an effective way in which buyers are looking at local providers. So that would be a key consideration as part of your go-to-market strategy there. Whereas if you're going to certain parts of Europe, such as Germany, Switzerland, part of your go-to-market in terms would be incorporating the likes of, detailed case studies, having robust, structured, mutual implementation plans. Those are practices that are very much heavily relied upon in those markets. Hence, within those markets, those will be some key elements that you would want to be incorporating in as part of your go-to-market market entry strategies. So again, it comes back to, in terms of identifying what sorts of cultural, regional, industry tailoring is going to be required, is going to be very much driven by doing that strategic market identification and doing that listening on the industry market as well as those buyer levels will help you determine what are some of those modifications around messaging, language, approaches, key go-to-market strategies, tactics that you are going to be wanting to utilize. So to recap again, so 3 key elements of your strategy that you want to be considering as part of when you're considering going international is doing your strategic market identification, for which you have 2 kinds of listening you need to be doing: listening at that market level, listening at the buyer level. And you definitely, as part of that, want to be leveraging and tapping into the likes of the relevant industries, groups, associations, where you can get in market to be attending events, having discussions, and really being immersed in the market, having discussions with members, relevant local industry experts, the associations, getting access to groups, individuals that you can be speaking with. You definitely want to incorporate. Looking at your market entry options, is it going to be joint ventures, alliances, partnerships, and what you're going to be doing as part of your initial initiatives, potentially starting off with the likes of content, events, or doing some kind of local test market pilot. And then 3, cultural and regional tailoring, thinking beyond language, but what sorts of, what are the appropriate channels, messaging? Are there specific business practices that are utilized in the specific regions? Because all is not one and the same just by virtue of if you're operating in the area of, let's say, managed service providers, how people undertake and do business practices can vary by region. Now, 2 questions that I want to also cover off before we conclude. One question that was brought forth that I want to talk about is, can you leverage existing client relationships to expand and tap into new global ecosystems? I would say that is definitely a strategic initiative that you definitely want to be giving strong consideration to, because where you can leverage existing relationships that can help give you access to potential partners, industry experts, other your local area service providers, even getting access to potential prospects to discuss. So absolutely, that's something you definitely want to be looking into, because that can really help open doors to help you get those initial key conversations to help you understand those markets and determine if it's feasible and the way forward. So definitely, if you can leverage existing relationships, you definitely want to be doing so, because that can be a very good way to be tapping in, particularly given that in the world of B2B buying of professional services, our type of advisory services, the question has been very much coming, who can help me solve? So where you already have some who's that you can tap into will be highly relevant. The second question wanted to answer was, what sorts of internal capabilities are required to go international? Now that is a pretty big question, something I'm not going to be able to cover off fully in the remaining time that we have on this call today. But one thing I will say in terms of one internal capability, one key consideration is around client experience, often referred to in the tech world as customer success, that whole service and support client delivery. You really want to be thinking about what is your capability, what is going to be the strategy, and I'm going to say post-transaction. So once you've landed that new consulting client, be it for cybersecurity services, for strategic and financial advice, for that legal client providing legal. How are you going to, once you sign the contract and that client is on board, how are you going to be servicing, managing, and supporting those clients? You want to be thinking, having an understanding of what are they going to be requiring. Taking it from a technology example, is it around reporting? Is it around training? Is it around fault rectification? So what happens when things go wrong? How are they going to be serviced? If you are operating in Toronto or Sydney and you have clients in Dubai and in Frankfurt, and they've got issues that are outside of your normal business hours, who and how are they going to get those issues resolved? So thinking about things such as service level agreements, service level assurances, the standards and the processes and timeframes of how you're going to be servicing and supporting your clients is very important. So one consideration, irrespective of whether you're operating in a technical, in terms of the IT tech world, or in other forms of professional services in advisories, how are you going to service and support your clients given that you're going into new markets? So will that be done via a partner? Will you need to have local market? Will you have set up an office there, or will you have that done via partner? Will it be done remotely? These are things that you really will need to be working through. Again, what that client success, that client experience, that service and support broadly is going to entail and encompass, again, is going to be very much determined by the industries, the markets that you're serving, the buyers that you're serving, and what are their priorities, requirements, and expectations. Okay, I hope you found that useful. So again, if you're looking to go into global markets, something that's worth giving consideration to, 3 considerations that you want to be looking at in terms of strategies. These are not all encompassing, but there are 3 key questions that you want to be addressing and considering is strategic market identification. So identifying, what are those right markets, industries, geographic markets to be going into, and what are the buyer priorities, requirements of them. How are you going to enter those markets? So looking at and assessing your different market entry options, and then be mindful of the likes of your cultural, regional tailoring that's going to be required. And as part of that, I'm going to be saying also as well, in relationship to that last question I answered, what is the service and support requirements on an ongoing basis? So once you've landed those clients, how are you going to service, support, and maintain them? So thank you very much. I will be putting this onto YouTube, and I'll be reposting this next week. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, please do so. Always putting out regular content. For further insights, information, tools, you can find those at listeninnovategrow.com. The next Ask Michael Anything will be in 2 weeks' time, where I'll be going into more in-depth around strategic collaborations for us in the professional services world. So I'm Michael Haynes. Thank you very much. Wishing you all a great rest of your respective days and rest of the week. And look forward to seeing you next time. Any questions that you would like to have answered in subsequent Ask Michael Anything sessions, please drop me a DM on LinkedIn. Take care and bye for now.